to transfer schools because you were going to medical school in New Orleans right when the hurricane hit and all that aftermath. So let's pick up there as you were describing that kind of process of needing to apply to transfer and how much of a headache that was and how you really were kind of left in this influx right then of just not knowing what to do and it being quite aggressive in some ways on both sides, the students and the faculty in that position. So let's pick up there.
Particularly the third-year medical students, that was one of the hardest problems to solve because of the type of training you do in the third year. So the school had to figure out how and where to continue clinical training.
Right.
There wasn't, at least to my knowledge, there was not a clear contingency plan on how to do that. Nothing had ever been developed for the scenario that went on.
Because how long was it until like hospitals were back up and running, even just for regular?
Oh, in New Orleans it was months.
Okay, yeah.
Other places were functional. You know, the hospitals were running, but the real issue was first there was no communication whatsoever.
Right.
Then eventually there was a little bit of communication, but it was limited.
Right.
And then began the process of, oh, we'll have a plan for you next week.
A plan for you in terms of like where they might be placing you again for clinical.
What are we going to do, right? How are you going to continue training? So we had been, you know, at that point we were more than a month out, right? We had, and again, like at that point I was sleeping, you know, on the floor of a friend's apartment. Right?
Yeah. Were you back in New Orleans at that point?
No, I wasn't. I was in Texas.
Out of the city still.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But you know, and I was eating cereal because that's all I could afford because I didn't have any financial aid money. So this was a real issue, you know, and I didn't have any of my possessions because those were all stuck in New Orleans.
Right.
And so from my perspective and that of many of my colleagues in the class, we were in a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
We were looking for some kind of guidance, leadership, answers, which largely were not forthcoming.
Right.
And as that situation deteriorated over time, and as there kept being missed deadlines and just things not happening and lack of communication, et cetera, many of us got more and more disenchanted, and so began to say, well, I think we're going to have to just fix this. No one's going to save us, so we're going to have to fix this scenario ourselves. And bear in mind, while all this was going on, we were watching the university make provisions for
these
various other types of students, right?
How long was it, would you say, like the start of this curve of people starting to make that jump of saying, I need to go somewhere else?
It took place over several weeks. Initially, in the initial stages, everybody was 100% in rally around the institution, right? This is terrible. We're all in this.
When you were all put into this position because of the hurricane, where you were all stranded, dealing with house stuff.
That's
all
right.
Everything.
All of these things were happening. The issue, so it was not like, hey, you know, the school took a hit, let's get out of here.
Right.
It was the school took a hit. Everything is chaos. We get that. But there was no, again, there had clearly been very little planning. Yeah. There was no execution.
Yeah, no plan in place.
And minimal communication.
Right.
So, and just a sort of trust us, we'll fix this at some juncture.